Hey now everyone, it's Steve Severs for Bionic Buzz. We're here at the world famous San Diego Comic Con. It feels so good to be back. Now before we get started, we appreciate your support. Please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and follow us on all social media. Now let's go see who we can talk to. Thanks so. Well, we got a lot to talk about in your career, but let's first focus here. You coordinated this amazing Stan Lee exhibit. Talk about putting this together.
Oh my God. I told them we needed a year. We had 59 days from conception to opening night. And I called upon literally 50 years of relationships with fellow fanboys, with auction houses and comic book dealers, and everyone, because it was a tribute to Stan at what would have been his 100th birthday year. Everybody was willing to part with their precious babies and loan them to us for the next 8 months, so everyone could enjoy what we have here. There was a story I wanted to tell. I've known Stan since I was 11 years old.
Wow.
He was my idol. He became my mentor, ultimately my friend, and we got to work together several times on creative projects, which was just comic book geek dream come true. Towards the end of his life, he and my son David and I taught the Smithsonian Institution's first course on comic books and superheroes, which is still available free online through edX. It's called The Rise of the Superheroes, and it's just me, Stan, and David talking about the history of comics and how these things were created and why in the context of their times. It was just a ton of fun. When Stan passed away, David and I were two of the producers of his memorial at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. So there's not too many people who could do this with the knowledge I have of Stan, of the history of Marvel, of all the artists, his co-creators, and the relationship in the fan world. And it was all in my head. So I said to everybody, step back and let me write this. Let me pull this together. And I'm very proud of what we've done. I'm very proud of the intense and enthusiastic reception that we're getting.
Very cool. Well, I had no idea that Stan worked with DC Comics. I guess you were a big part of putting this project together?
I was the culprit.
Oh, there you go.
So do we have time for the whole story, or would you like the short version?
Let's do the short version.
The short version is I took him by the hand and said, let me take you over to DC Comics. Can you just imagine you creating Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Flash the way you would have done them at Marvel? He said, Michael, you're out of your mind. DC would never go for that. That would be like bringing Henry Ford over to Chevrolet. He says, it's not going to happen. I said, would you let me try? He says, go ahead. Sure enough, Paul Levitz, the president of DC at the time, said, I can't think of anything that would be more fun. And we got to work on this together for 13 months. And we lined him up with the best, most legendary artists and the hottest young talent. So we have Stan Lee and John Buscema of Silver Surfer fame creating Superman. Stan Lee and Joe Kubert of Hawkman fame and Sergeant Rock fame creating Batman. Stan Lee and Jim Lee creating Wonder Woman. And Stan was 20 years ahead of his time. His Batman was black. His Wonder Woman and Aquaman were Hispanic. His Robin was Latino. His Flash was a young female. Shazam was rooted in Indian culture. The man was 20 years ahead of his time.
I love that.
It was great. It was a great fun ride.
Well, we're in such a golden age, I would say, of comic book movies, TV shows, and you're kind of a big part of it. Got the snowball going with the Batman franchise, and even Swamp Man. You produced
Swamp
this.
Thing, yeah. That was the first movie I produced. We did it on a budget of $1.9 million, and now they're about to make another Swamp Thing movie for like $150 million. But I got a chance to work with Wes Craven, who was, he created Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, and became one of my true friends. I learned the hard way what you have to do to produce a movie. It was like taking somebody who didn't know how to swim and throwing them into the deep end of a lake and saying, all right, swim.
Oh, that's how you learn.
That's how I learned.
Yeah.
But that's what started it all for me. And then when I was a kid in my 20s, I wanted to show the world a dark and serious Batman the way he was created in 1939 as a creature of the night. And that was my reaction to the TV series that came on when I was a teenager, which I hated because the whole world was laughing at Batman and thought he was a joke.
Yeah.
So I set out to do that. I raised money privately. And as a kid in my 20s, I went to DC Comics and I bought the rights to Batman from DC to set out to make these dark and serious Batman movies. From the time I bought the rights till we got our first movie made in 1989, it took 10 years. Every studio said no. They told me it was the worst idea they ever heard, that I was crazy. They said, you can't do serious comic book movies. You can't do dark superheroes. 10 years of not knowing how I was going to pay my bills the following week, with a wife who just hung on by her fingertips and believed in me that we could pull it off.
Well, thank you. I mean, 10 years, that's amazing. Well, I mean, I read something you can confirm. I guess Jack Nicholson thought it was going to be that much of a hit that he took less money to get more money at the back end of the. Do you know anything about that?
I know everything about that.
Yeah.
At the time, the less money you're talking about was a huge amount of money that he had up front, but he had an incredible piece of the back end of Batman.
Well, he believed in it. I guess
he totally believed in it, and the way that whole started, that whole thing, it was May 1980. It was Memorial Weekend. I get on a bus from New York heading back to my home in New Jersey. I have the afternoon paper, and there are two movies opening up I see. One is called The Empire Strikes Back, and the other one is called The Shining.
Oh.
And for the first time, I see a picture of Jack Nicholson looking totally maniacal, peering around like a doorway. It's the Here's Johnny shot that everyone knows. I said, oh my God, this is the only actor who could play the Joker. I tore it out. I got home. I raced to my desk. I whited out Jack's face. I did his lips in a red pen. I did his hair in a magic marker. And that's what I showed everybody at the studio. I said, this is the only actor who could play the Joker. I still have that.
That's
I saved
so cool.
it. I saved it.
Maybe one day we could do an exhibit, documentary about how you put the whole movie together in 10 years, you know?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's interesting. First of all, I had a chance to write my memoir, The Boy Who Loved Batman.
Okay.
I've also done the Audible book version of it. And now it is being turned into a Broadway play.
Yeah.
It is the Nederlander Organization of New York, which owns half the Broadway theaters. And I'm very, very excited about it. It's deep in the works and moving quickly.
Very cool. Anything else allowed in the works, allowed to talk about before I let you go?
Well, as you know, Joker 2, which is Folie Deux, is completed, and Todd Phillips is a genius and is working on that. It'll be starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga.
That's going to be dynamic duel.
I mean, I'm not saying much about it at all, except it is once again, thanks to Todd, going to push the envelope and revolutionize what a comic book movie can be. It's amazing.
Well, keep up the amazing work. This exhibit here is amazing, spectacular, whatever you want to say.
Stan used amazing, fantastic, incredible, uncanny.
There you go. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks a lot.